Welcome to the chalkboard, my fellow football nerds, for episode number 206 of Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Shane Haff, and you can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. I'm joined today by the best co host in the game. You've heard him on the Saturday morning spread right here on the Eagles Pin Pool Network. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well here. I don't know why I just lied. I don't know why I just lied to the people. I'm doing horrible. The Phillies ripped my heart out. The Eagles lost the first time with Jalen Hurts healthy in a very long time. And not good. It was a rough weekend. Had a terrible gambling Sunday, but last night Jags made it a little better. So let's get back on track. New week, new me. Let's go.
All right. And, fortunately for you and for me and for our listeners out there, we're not actually here to talk about the Eagles. So
Thank God.
we don't have to relitigate that. But we are going to talk about every other game from week 5 in the NFL. We'll give you your top takeaways. So if you're new to the show, I'll timestamp them in the podcast description. If you're listening later, you can jump around games. But, in about a little over an hour, we'll cover the whole league and just kind of keep you up to date. And so let's start off with Thursday Night Football. This was a great game. It was so long ago, we won't talk about it a lot, but the 49ers beat the Rams 26-23 in overtime. And this might be the marquee moment of Mac Jones's career. I'm still not sure he becomes a long-term starter somewhere again, but this was a special performance. I mean, he's playing in a game without Ricky Pearsall, without Jawan Jennings, without Brandon Ayuk, without George Kittle, and he threw for 342 yards and 2 touchdowns on one leg and led a game-winning drive in overtime. His connection with Kendrick Bourne was insane. 11 targets, 10 receptions, 142 yards. Now, the Rams had several chances to win this game. They came back from down 20-7 and they tied the game, but their extra point was blocked, and so it stayed tied. Then they also fumbled at the goal line with a minute remaining. So they get it back because Kyle Shanahan is a coward and decided to just run the ball 3 times instead of trying to pick up a first down and end it. And they kicked the field goal anyways to get to overtime. Then in overtime, McVay chose to go for it on 4th and 1 from the San Francisco 11 with 3 minutes and change left, which I thought was a good decision. But he took the ball out of Stafford's hand, which was a really bad decision. And the run play gets stuffed. It was the first run they called in 30 minutes of real time, and the last one was a fumble that cost you the game in regulation. So I thought that was really bad. Like Brett Eclipse says here in the chat, this is a soul-crushing loss for the Rams.
A lot of those this week.
Yeah. On the 49ers side, I still got really big concerns about Christian McCaffrey. He had 22 carries for 57 yards in this game. That's 2.6 yards per carry. He did have 8 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. This isn't a one-time thing. I've mentioned it a few times, but he is averaging a career-low 3.1 yards per carry this season. He has only been under 4 yards per carry twice in his career. Once was in 2020 when he only played 3 games, so small sample size. The other was his rookie season. And even then it was like 3.7. He's at 3.1. So he's basically a receiver at this point. Now, he is their leading receiver with 387 yards. But Christian McCaffrey is basically a receiver at this point, and I think fantasy should reflect that. What is your takeaway from this game, Mark?
My takeaway is that the West is going to be an absolute war with the fact that San Fran has started like this, with the fact that they have the schedule remaining that they do. It's interesting. I just pulled up. I hope this is updated. I'm not quite sure that it is on FTN Fantasy for the DVOA rankings right now. Not that I think that is the end all be all whatsoever, because I think there's some crazy stuff on there if it is true and updated. But as of right now, Seattle is number 2 on DVOA. The Rams are number 4 on DVOA. And San Fran is all the way down at number 16. But San Fran's 4-1, and it feels like they've skated by maybe some of their tougher games here. They went on the road to Seattle and won, went on the road to LA and won. Those are the teams they're going to be competing with in this kind of in the division here. They also beat Arizona, so they're 3-0 in the division to start the division. And then so next week they have at Tampa. That's a tough game. You have some more tough games in there, but just a sample of some games you have left on San Fran's schedule. Atlanta at home, you feel pretty good about that. Houston on the road, you feel pretty good about that. Giants on the road, the Cardinals, the Panthers at home, the Browns on the road, the Titans, and then you have some other ones, but let's just say they win those. That puts you at 11 wins. And then you lose every other game, even if we're saying toss up games like the Bears at home. I don't know if they're going to be favored in that game, probably, but let's say they lose that one and the other toss up ones. We're still talking about an 11 win Niners team in a division where Seattle and the Rams look like probably the class of it. Even though San Fran won this game, I still think the Rams are probably a better team. But it doesn't matter if San Fran's able to just take care of business against a really, really easy schedule.
Yeah. So, all right. Going to be interesting to see how that plays out. That division is certainly going to be really interesting in a way that maybe we didn't think it was going to be. And like you said, we'll get into some of the other teams a little bit later in the show. But let's get into the Sunday action now. We'll go to London for the early game. Minnesota versus Cleveland. Minnesota wins 21-17. And it was tough sledding offensively for the Vikings all day. But they got the ball back with just over 3 minutes left to play, trailing by 3, and went on a 10-play, 80-yard touchdown drive to win the game. Carson Wentz was 9 of 9 for 71 yards on that drive, and he was only 16 of 25 for 165 otherwise, so he really just came alive for that one drive. Dylan Gabriel, I thought, was solid in his first start, 19 of 33 for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns, which, by the way, matches Joe Flacco's touchdowns in the first four games combined. Quinshon Judkins continues to be a spark for the Browns. He had 110 yards on 23 carries and 18 receiving yards. But I thought, one of the things that was interesting to me in this game is the Vikings and how they were able to pretty well neutralize Myles Garrett. They chipped him on 43% of his pass rush attempts and held him to only 2 pressures on 35 pass rushes. And so, Myles Garrett is a phenomenal player, but the Vikings definitely devoted a lot of extra attention to him and were largely able to neutralize him. Neither of these teams is very interesting to me long term, but any thoughts that you have on these guys as we move into the Sunday games?
Quinshon Judkins is a real deal stud. It's kind of a shame for Judkins that he's a bad person, so I'm not feeling too bad for him. But it's a shame, I guess, for a different team that that the Patriots invested a pretty high pick in Travion. I think there's a chance if Judkins was on the Patriots instead of Travion, and maybe if he started the start of the year, man, he'd have a chance at Offensive Rookie of the Year. Judkins has been unbelievable, and looks like a true bell cow there for Cleveland. And in general, Cleveland seems to have gotten a lot of studs in this draft. I think we've talked about this already at some point this year, but I feel like I'm going to name them and I'm going to miss one that Shane's going to remember. But Mason Graham, I know has had really, really good games. Carson Schwarzenegger, I know that I wasn't a big fan, but I think he's actually been pretty darn good to start the year. Quinshon Judkins looks like a bell cow. Harold Fannin looks like a starting tight end in the NFL. I think I'm missing one that they drafted and that has played well. So it does seem like the Browns nailed some of those picks. One negative, you probably thought when you made that trade that they were getting a top 10 to 15 pick from Jacksonville, and Jacksonville might win the Super Bowl. Who knows? So, but on the other side with Minnesota, them being 3-2 feels bizarre. I guess because they just had a weird up and down quarterback kind of journey throughout the year with the JJ start and then his struggles and then the injury and then Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was pretty darn good in this game, as funny as it is to say. And with the amount of success that we've talked about this, but the amount of success we've had post Carson Wentz makes it a little bit easier to kind of want Carson Wentz to succeed. And it was cool to see. Like this comment said, Carson Wentz lead a game-winning drive at the end. Especially, he was kind of banged up. They thought they were going to have to take him out and put in Max Brosmer, and Carson Wentz comes back in. And it was interesting. If you watch that final drive, Kevin O'Connell was being he was taking timeouts early because he was just trying to get to field goal range. And as that drive was going, it's like Kevin O'Connell was kind of like me Him on the sideline was the same as I was watching at home, where I was like, are the Vikings about to score a touchdown here? Like, is this? Are they about to try to end this right now? It seemed shocking that they went all the way down to score a touchdown, not just to tie the game. So, uh, kudos to Carson Wentz.
All right. Let's keep going to a game that was not very competitive at all. It is the Las Vegas Raiders at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts win 40-6. This game was so bad that Anthony Richardson got put in the fourth quarter. Daniel Jones was 20 of 29 for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a span of 6 straight touchdown drives. Now, there were some short fields in there thanks to a block punt and a Geno Smith interception, but it's still impressive. The Raiders, I thought, moved the ball well, but they went 0 of 4 in the red zone, and Geno Smith continues to be horrible. He has 9 interceptions through 5 games now, and it's not like he's getting unlucky. He trails only Jake Browning in turnover-worthy play rate through the first 5 weeks of the season. Meanwhile, the Colts have won 3 games by 20 or more points this season after having 0 such games in the last 3 seasons combined. They currently lead the NFL in point differential at plus 75. And only one other team is above plus 50, and it's the Lions at plus 62. So, Mark, I'm going to ask you this one. Who do you think is third in point differential? It's Colts at plus 74, Lions at plus 62. Who do you think is third?
I'm trying to think about why you would ask it.
I'll give you a hint. The team that is third has a losing record.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to. It's not Baltimore. Dallas? No, they don't have a losing record. I don't know. Who is it?
It's the Texans. At plus 47. Yeah. They lost by 5, 1, and 7, and then won by 26 and 34.
I guess that makes some sense then. Where do you think the Texans rank in DVOA?
DVOA, 8th.
They rank 8th. They
look at that.
They rank 8th in DVOA. Where do you think the Eagles rank in DVOA, by the way?
Eagles in DVOA, 16th.
11.
Okay.
But they are barely behind 10, which is Denver. They are barely behind.
Okay. All right. That's all I've got on that one. Anything that you want to throw in before I won't say get to better games because the next one's not much better, but still.
It's the I don't know how Pete Carroll's only job going to Vegas was to make them competent. Like, he didn't need to win the Super Bowl. He didn't need to rebuild for the future, really. They just wanted him to make them competent. And him and Chip Kelly have done a terrible, terrible job. So he should be fired at the end of this year. I think they only gave him a pretty short-term contract, actually. So it doesn't hurt as bad to fire him. I think this game had a lot more to do with the Raiders than the Colts, although I think the Colts are absolutely going to make the playoffs. It'll be a fun race with the Jags.
Yeah, it looks like it was only a 3-year contract for Pete Carroll.
Yeah, that's shocking for a head coach now. That does not happen. Like, 4 is the minimum. 5 is like almost become, I feel like, the usual.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go to New Orleans, where the Saints get their first win of the season over the New York Giants, 26-14. Part of that was forcing a turnover on 5 consecutive possessions, which has actually been done before. The Jets also turned the ball over 5 consecutive times in 2016. So something about the New York teams, but it was 2 interceptions and then fumbles by Darius Slayton, Jackson Dart, and Cam Skattebo. The Giants pressured Spencer Rattler on 55% of his dropbacks, but he took 0 sacks and committed 0 turnovers. Jackson Dart started this game strong, leading back-to-back touchdown drives to open the game, but then the Giants just fell apart, and it was turnover after turnover. And now I will say for Dart, one of his 2 interceptions was a 4th and 6th heave downfield, which, like, okay, I mean, you got to throw it somewhere, so I don't care. and the other one, a receiver just quit running his routes. The interceptions are worse than they look like on the stat line. But meanwhile, the Saints have kicker troubles. Their kicker had a miss in each of the first 3 games, and he missed twice in this one. And so it very well could have cost them the win. But the Saints do get the win, and so they are no longer undefeated. Or defeated, I guess. Are the Jets the only team without a win so far now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So only no undefeateds and only one team left without a win. What are your thoughts on Giants Saints?
I don't have a lot of thoughts on this game, to be quite frank. And my fantasy thoughts, there's some people in the fantasy community excited about Kendry Miller. He got more carries than Alvin Kamara in this game. I think he actually played as many snaps as Alvin Kamara in this game. What team out there could use Alvin Kamara? Like, I'm trying to think. Obviously, everybody's talked about Kansas City as a potential landing spot for Kamara.
Chargers?
Washington. The Chargers now make sense. I think the Chargers will probably opt to not do that because Omarion Hampton, they use such a high pick on him. They probably just don't want to invest anything else at the position. He's out probably for 4 to 6 weeks, but Washington doesn't have a lot of picks.
Yeah.
But Washington's a team that could definitely use him. New England just lost Gibson, and Ramondre can't stop fumbling. But again, they're another team that used a high pick
On a guy they won't play.
Yeah. Pittsburgh, but Gainwell kind of stepped up last game. Who knows if that's short term, but they're probably feeling good right now, at least.
Brett Eclipse says, what about Dallas?
Dallas makes a lot of sense. Javante's played really well early this year. I don't
Different
know
kind of back, though.
Yeah, you could definitely do both. I think there's also an argument that maybe like Dallas' offense has been unbelievable. Should they even is that even something that's worth adding? Should they maybe look at defense if they are going to trade picks?
I think they should trade a first-round pick for him.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else. No, not Minnesota. They probably feel fine with Jordan Mason. Carolina feels great. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, I think it's probably Kansas City's a big one. Arizona, if Arizona felt desperate. Yeah, Arizona makes a lot of sense, honestly. If they felt desperate and actually wanted to make a move, Arizona could talk themselves into Kamara. I could see that.
Did you say Kansas City?
Yeah.
The Kansas City should do it for sure.
Definitely Kansas City. They have to be the leaders, I would say, in the clubhouse for it.
Yeah. Brett Eclipse says the Cowboys should really package some picks together and trade for an elite pass rusher like maybe Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I would help.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the Dallas Cowboys, who beat the Jets 37-22, and as you said, their offense continues to roll. Javonte Williams rushed for 135 yards in this one. Dak is playing at an MVP caliber level right now. The offense put up over 400 yards again, and the Jets just continue to shoot themselves in the foot. They had lots of penalties. Breece Hall fumbled twice. It's the same old for the Jets, except for the fact that their defense is not living up to the billing. They've yet to force a turnover this season. It's just not good to be a Jets fan. So our hearts go out to Jets fans. The Cowboys pressured Fields on 50% of his dropbacks on this one. It's just a rough season, and one that we thought could maybe be pretty fun for the Jets, and it just absolutely has not gone their way.
But the reason it hasn't gone their way, and there's been problems with the offense, and the offense was bad in week 2, and then Fields was out for week 3. But they were actually competent against Tampa in the game that he missed. But they've scored. If you take the Buffalo game out, they've scored 32, 27, 27, 22. Like, they haven't been terrible on offense. Some of that is some garbage time, but the problem is they've given up 27 plus in every game. 34, 30, 29, 27, 37. When you hire a defensive coordinator to be your head coach, there's basically no excuse to me to not be at least average, even in year one. Like you saw it in Washington with Dan Quinn, where did he make the Washington defense good right away? No. But with limited talent and a bunch of veterans, Dan Quinn was able to get the Washington defense to play well enough to help supplement a really good young offense that could make a run last year. And I have serious questions about Aaron Glenn with just how bad this defense has been. He's also standing by his man with Steve Wilks. People want him to fire Steve Wilks, who's done a horrible job. And I guess there's also, if you like, just look at the path of Steve Wilks over the last couple of years, he has not had a lot of success. So there's he kind of compared it to, well, people wanted Dan Campbell to fire me when I was in Detroit in year one, and he kept me. And I think that you could see all the success Detroit's had, and it's like, okay, man, that's fine and all, but it's a mess. That defense is, besides Dallas, it's the second worst in the league probably, and it might actually be worse than Dallas. Dallas' defense played a lot better than the Jets did in this game, but obviously the Dallas offense is much better.
Yeah. All right. Well, you mentioned Rico Dowdle. Let's go to Carolina, where Miami loses 27-24, and Rico Dowdle went off. Fortunately, Mark and I had a conversation early last week about adding Rico Dowdle to fantasy lineups, and so he was in my fantasy lineup for this week. Gets 206 rushing yards on 23 carries, adds a touchdown, adds 28 receiving yards. So shout out Mark for that one. But it was a rough start to the game for Bryce Young. He got a fumble on his first possession, an interception on his second possession, and Carolina is in a 17-0 hole. But, credit the Panthers for sticking with the run, and it really paid off. And the Dolphins scored on their first 3 possessions, and then they went 5 consecutive possessions where they gained only 48 total yards. They lost the lead after giving up an 85-yard touchdown drive, promptly scored a touchdown to retake the lead, and then gave up another 80-plus yard touchdown drive to lose the lead once again. Jalen Waddle was good in this game. In the absence of Tyreek Hill, he had 110 yards and a touchdown, but the Dolphins had no run game at all. They had 14 yards on 13 designed runs, which is negative 46 rushing yards over expectation. That is the worst output, rushing-wise, since week 17 of last year, when also the Dolphins went negative 50. So not being able to run the ball. 2 out of the last 6 regular season weeks, the Dolphins have put up horrible numbers like that. Thoughts on this one?
I don't know how the Dolphins lost this game. This was not I bet the Dolphins in this game, and there was a moment like the Dolphins are up. I forget how big set was it 17-0? Yeah, 17-0. The Dolphins started out this game, and I was kind of thinking like, Dolphins are going to be 2-3. They have home games against the Chargers and Browns coming up here, and you looked at their last 3 games at that point. They competed with Buffalo, they beat the Jets, and then they played really well to get up 17-0, and then Carolina goes on a 27-7 run. It's just there was a lot of debilitating back-breaking losses, and this one was up there. I don't know how McDaniel survives this. Tyreek Hill being out doesn't help. The run game being abysmal doesn't help. But it seems like this was their chance to have a respectable season, and they blew it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's
shout out Rico Dowdle, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about another team that is kind of blowing it and seeing their season slip away. It's the Baltimore Ravens, who lose to the Houston Texans 44-10. And this is not the showing that Baltimore wanted. I mean, granted, they are facing a Texans defense and they have a backup quarterback, and so that's going to be tough. But Derrick Henry got nothing going, 33 yards on 15 carries, and their defense gave up 417 yards to the Texans. Stroud threw for 244 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I just think this is going to end up being a lost season for the Ravens with injuries. It's more than the Lamar injury. They have tons of defensive injuries too. And I mean, I hate to be that guy, but I don't know that this game says much about the Texans. Like, it's good that they were dominant, but we always knew their defense was good. The question was their offense. And although it feels good to dismantle the Ravens, pretty much everybody does that these days. The Ravens have given up 37 or more points in 4 of their 5 games this season. They're the first team to ever do that in their first 5 games, by the way. So it's hard for me to take much. I mean, obviously, it's a fun game if you're Texans fans, but it's hard for me to take a lot away from this for the Texans, other than you pretty much just did what was expected.
Yeah, the Ravens traded Odafe Owe, by the way, today, with a 5th-round pick for, I think it was Alohi German from the Chargers, and a 7th-round pick. So they're making moves. They signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson today, so the Ravens are trying to do stuff to fix that defense. I don't know if it's going to be enough, but it all depends. And by the, I think more than anything, this game was an example of why it was absurd Lamar Jackson did not win the MVP last year. People tried to make a case that, oh, well, the Ravens are actually good without Lamar, and it's not just Lamar that makes the Ravens this good. Yeah, it is. The Lamar is the stir that makes the entire drink possible to stir. And it's without Lamar, they're one of the worst teams in football. This is like when you used to take LeBron off of really good teams when he would leave the Cleveland, or when he left Miami, or you look at what happens. But yeah, I'm not taking anything away from Houston beating up on the awful Titans and then the Cooper Rush Ravens.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the Saturday afternoon slate then. And we'll go to Arizona and talk about this disaster. So the Titans win 22-21 over the Cardinals. Cam Ward gets his first win in the NFL, but it took a while to get going. They gained only 44 yards on their opening drive and kicked a field goal. And then only 72 total yards on their next 8 drives. But 19 unanswered points down the stretch gave the Titans their first win, and it was not without some help. The Cardinals just collapsed in one of the worst possible ways that you'll see. They scored on 3 of their first 4 drives, and then they went 3 and out on 4 of their next 8 possessions. Kyler Murray had a snap go off of his face mask for a fumble that also injured him somehow.
Well, they disagree. The Cardinals wanted very clear that was not, he did not get concussed by the snap hitting his helmet. They said it was a hamstring issue that he went out with.
Wait, he got hit in the helmet so hard that it hurt his hamstring?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Emari Demercado tossed the ball short of the goal line after a 72-yard run. Like, how? I legitimately don't understand how this can ever happen to a professional athlete. But for it to happen the week after it happened to A.D. Mitchell, that's unbelievable. Honestly, like, I'm telling you, if I'm a head coach and that happens, just go to the locker room and pack your crap. Like, you're not. I don't even want you on the sideline anymore. It's so stupid that people are still doing this. They also had a play where they picked off Cam Ward and then they fumbled the return and gave it back. The Titans' win percentage was as low as 1.8%, and they still lost. And by the way, I remember last week talking about Joey Sly missing 2 40-yard field goals. He misses a field goal in this game. Or no, he missed an extra point in this game. And when he was walking out to attempt the game-winning field goal, I was just like, oh no, he's really going to blow this for them. But he did make it. And in doing so, he made the Cardinals become the first team since the merger to lose on walk-off field goals as time expires in 3 consecutive games. So rough week for the Cardinals. What are your thoughts on this one?
14-25 for Jonathan Gannon as the head coach of the Cardinals. I had the Cardinals in Survivor in my eliminator pool.
Oh no.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. Kyler Murray is an absolute loser. It's and Brett Eclipse. Great comment. It's absolutely unbelievable what the Cardinals pulled off in this game. The DeMercado fumble out of the back of the end zone, their head coach assaulting the player on the sidelines. Then you have the fumble that turns into or the interception that turns into a fumble that turns into a
Yep.
touchdown.
By the way, like legitimately, the NFL probably should have suspended Jonathan Gannon for at least a game, not just fined him.
Was it that bad?
If the player hits him back,
Yeah,
what's happened? I mean,
it could have been bad.
yeah,
Are we sure? I guess I need a better angle to see if he hits him. Like it kind of looks like he's trying to like rip away, kind of like I don't I'm not sure what the hit actually is, or did he like got to be better? Like I
Yeah,
think
I don't
that's
know.
kind of fine, like smack on the, but like I, maybe this is like a weird boomer take for me. I don't know, but I kind of watched it and I was like, it's not that bad. I kind of feel like that would happen at every high school in the country.
Yeah. Well, I mean, high school's not on national television.
Yeah,
Nobody would
that's
care.
fair. That's fair. By the way, I am in. This is an
That's a
aside.
bad take. I shouldn't have said that. Anyways, go on.
This is an aside, by the way. But I am in suburban Texas, outside Dallas, and I've driven by a couple high school football stadiums. Oh my god, it's insane. I know, like, yeah, I watched Friday Night Lights, the show. I watched the movie, but the high school football stadiums in Texas are pro stadiums. Like they have like full on like how you have the stands, but on top of the stands you have these big press boxes
Hmm.
built out. And I like my high school, the Chamonix High School, shouts out. They have a pretty solid like football stadium, I'd say, for the Northeast, or for most of the country. Pretty big stands, and they have a little press box on top of it. But these Texas stadiums are unbelievable. Anyway,
Speaking of high school football, by the way, my local high school won the state championship last year. They are off to a 5-0 start with a plus 193 point differential this
yeah,
year.
yeah, that's
Uh,
crazy.
their last two games, 60-0 and 54-7. So we're rolling here. We're rolling.
I love that. I think my high school's really fallen off. I'd have to look at the records. I think they've really fallen off. But Kyler Murray was out there playing high school football at the end of this game, and I don't know if you saw what he said, but they asked him if this is the worst loss he's ever been involved in, and he said, I don't know. I don't even know what to say to that." And he said, "How to lose a game 101." So that's a funny clip anytime the Cardinals do anything, is just how to lose a game 101
Here,
from
hold
Kyler
on.
Murray.
Wait for it. Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, pew, explosives. You run fast. What an
Oh,
idiot.
man.
I can't believe he conned people into a head coaching job. I still can't believe it.
Yeah, me neither. And he cost us a year of Vic Fangio. But anyways,
What
let's keep it rolling here. Let's go to a wild game in Seattle. Tampa Bay at Seattle. Oh, sorry.
Timeout. We haven't had any tangents.
Okay.
What happens if the 2023 Eagles have Vic Fangio?
Um, they don't collapse because they have a defense. But I don't think they don't win the Super Bowl because
No, I agree.
the fatal flaw of the offense was discovered, and Brian Johnson / Nick Sirianni weren't capable of fixing it. So unless Vic Fangio steps out of the DC booth and is like, "Hey guys, here's how you beat the blitz," which maybe I don't know. He's certainly not doing that right now with whatever's going on. But they don't collapse, and they probably. Well, I don't know if they beat Tampa because that's still going to be a bad matchup for them. Well, but they might have been the 1 seed, right?
They
If they
would've
don't
had a
totally
higher-
collapse, yeah.
yeah.
So I think
It wouldn't have been the 4 at least.
they don't collapse and they win a playoff game, but they wouldn't have won the whole thing. The offense was too flawed.
Yeah, I think San Fran. Yeah, San Fran went to the Super Bowl. I think San Fran probably still goes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
But yeah, it would have been interesting because I do think there were some offensive flaws and problems absolutely down the stretch with that team. I do think part of me thinks that a lot of it was just how the defense was historically bad down the stretch. And I
Yeah.
think if you just would have fixed that, it's a much, much different reality. But anyway, fun tangent.
Yeah. I wish if I was granted the power of time travel, would go back in time and clone Vic Fangio. And Vic has an identical twin now, and they're super competitive with each other. And so while Vic Fangio is super into defense, his brother is like a diabolical offensive coordinator, and they just
Dick
like,
Fangio.
huh?
Dick
Nick,
Fangio.
yeah, and they just go at it, and then they end up as the Eagles' OC and DC, and every day in practice is like a war between these guys, and they just both stay in Philadelphia forever, and the Eagles win 12 straight Super Bowls. It'd be great.
Nick's the head coach. Nick, Vic, and Dick.
The Icks. Oh man! All right, let's roll on. That was a good tangent, by the way. We needed that. Let's go to Seattle. Tampa Bay wins 38-35, and this was just another magical fourth quarter performance. So the Bucks score a touchdown to tie the game with just over a minute left to play, and then Sam Darnold throws an interception that turns into a game-winning field goal. Baker Mayfield was 29 of 33 for 379 yards and 2 touchdowns. Emeka Egbuka had 7 catches on 7 targets for 163 yards and a touchdown. Like, he's going to win offensive rookie of the year. He's already on pace for 1,513 yards and 17 touchdowns this season. He became only the 4th player in NFL history to record 20 or more receptions, 400 or more receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns in their first 5 career games, along with Jamar Chase, Terry McLaurin, and Randy Moss. I also think you walk out of this game and you feel pretty good about Seattle. Darnold was 28 of 34 for 341 yards and 4 touchdowns. And yeah, he had the costly pick, but it was deflected. So, I mean, I thought it was a good game from Darnold. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a good one, 8 for 132 yards and a touchdown. But the Bucks became the first team in NFL history with 4 wins in their first 5 games of the season, in which they were trailing in the final minute of regulation, tied or trailing. So, shout out to the Bucks. They're just going to do this every week, I guess, and they're going to keep pulling them out. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, the Bucks and Seahawks have played 10 combined games. 9 have been fun. Like 9 have come down to the very end for either team, and all 5 have for Tampa. What Tampa's done with the amount of injuries they've had is incredible. And I think with a lot of close teams, or a lot of teams that play close games, I should say, rather, I would say, the luck is going to start coming back against them in 1-score games. And I don't really fully believe that with this team because the Jets game was kind of fake close. They had a kick block that made it closer than it was, and then they had to go score again. They lost the close Eagles game, so one of their close games they did lose. And part of the reason that some of these games have been closer than they should be is because Bucky Irving's out now. You've missed Chris Godwin at times. Mike Evans is out now. And Emeka Egbuka was still getting used to the offense at the beginning of the year. You missed Tristan Wirfs at the beginning of the year. You're missing Cody Mauch still. You're missing Luke Goedeke still. You're missing pieces on defense that are going to be back. Like, it just feels like Tampa's weathered the storm, and they're 4-1 here through what I look at their schedule again real fast. I wouldn't say it's been an easy schedule off the top of my no. I mean, you have wins against the Falcons, Texans, and Seahawks. You lost to the Eagles. Hasn't been an easy schedule. You're 4-1. You've been incredibly banged up. But the story of this game is the fact that it was, on a Sunday where there was a lot of bad quarterback play. I'd say, there's bad quarterback play in the NFL in general in 2025. Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield combined for 720 yards, 6 touchdowns in this game, otherwise known as the 2022 Carolina Panthers revenge game. They were both on a revenge game against an employer that was not even involved in the game. So very unique revenge game in this one.
Yeah, in 2018, the top 3 picks of the draft
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, Sam Darnold. You can even go down to number 4, but I guess he's always been considered good. But all three of those guys are really good. None of them with the team they started with still. Denzel Ward at 4, he's still in Cleveland. We start to fall off with Bradley Chubb at pick 5. But
That's not even that bad of a pick, though.
No, it's just not what you would have wanted at top 5. Brett Eclipse had a good comment here. Said Sam Darnold is having the year we all thought Geno would have. Maybe it's just something in Seattle. It was hot take. Russell Wilson, only good in Seattle. Geno Smith, only good in Seattle.
Something
Sam Darnold, going to Seattle. Different coaches. That's all I'm saying. Something in the water up there.
Something in the water.
All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to Detroit at Cincinnati. Detroit wins 37-24 in a game that wasn't really that close. Goff was 19 of 23 for 258 and 3 touchdowns. David Montgomery threw a touchdown. He rushed for a touchdown. Jake Browning was awful. He didn't hit 100 yards passing until the third quarter, at which point he was down 28-3 and had 3 interceptions. Now, he did finally get going. He connected with Jamar Chase to the tune of 6 catches, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But the Bengals just continue to be hopeless. Aiden Hutchinson had 8 pressures and a sack, which was a strip sack. He also had 2 sacks wiped out by a penalty. One, he lined up offsides. The other, there was a defensive holding penalty. So he has a sack in 4 consecutive games, which ties the Lions' single-season record. And speaking of records, Kirby Joseph became the 6th player since the year 2000 with at least 20 interceptions in his first 4 seasons as the Lions roll. Mark, takeaways from this one.
It's a funny comment. It's so tiring watching the Lions get to beat up on cupcakes week after week and watching the NFL media fall in love with them again. I do kind of agree. They did get a cushy start to the schedule here. But they had the Ravens and Packers in there as well. What I will say is we're going to find out a lot about the Lions. Next week, they go to Kansas City on Sunday Night Football. After that, you play against Tampa. After that, Minnesota. After that, at Washington, at Philadelphia, Green Bay. That's a tough stretch for Detroit here over these next 7 games. So then you got some Dallas in there, at the Rams, the Steelers, the Vikings, at the Bears. Not an easy schedule for the Lions the rest of the way. So I think they've got their cupcake out of the way. And also the Bengals weren't supposed to be a cupcake with Joe Burrow.
That's true.
This obviously that happens throughout a year where you happen to land on teams when they have backups in there. The Bengals traded for Joe Flacco. I get it. It's a 5th for a 6th. Who cares? The problem with the Bengals, I get they threw picks. Like, they scored 24 points. They still put up some stuff at the end of the game. Like, I don't think Jake Browning's the problem right now. Like, he's
a pretty big problem.
He's throwing picks, but like, is Joe Flacco? What's the score of this game if Joe Flacco played?
Yeah, I don't know. Joe Flacco was really bad this year too.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like the score of this game is probably 34-24 instead of 37-24. Maybe I think I had to deal with like a lot of talk on Twitter. I feel like of Joe Flacco getting traded to the Bengals as if it's something I have to care about at all. Yeah, if you're gonna make something fun, trade for Jameis. I agree with the commenter.
Yeah, we need Jameis on the football field. That's how
Jameis on the Bengals with Jamar would be insane.
Yeah,
there for 700 yards.
Yeah, they should have done that for sure. Especially for a team that's not gonna. He's QB3 in New York. Go get him. But
yeah, I agree. Go get Russ. Even if you want to say that, that's at least more fun than Flacco.
Is it though?
You can throw a deep ball, Jamar. At least just throw it down to Jamar somewhere.
That's true. All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go Washington at Los Angeles. They beat the Chargers 27-10. Washington fell in a hole early. Jaden Daniels struggled a little bit early on in his return. He was 1 of 3 for 7 yards on his first 2 drives. They found themselves in a 10-0 hole. But a Quentin Johnston fumble killed a promising drive for the Chargers, and then the Commanders come back to make it 10-10 at half. And they end up winning the game, scores 17 unanswered in the second half. The Chargers had multiple errors in this game. I mean, I mentioned the Quentin Johnston fumble. They also had a roughing the kicker penalty that erased a Ladd McConkey punt return touchdown and turned into a field goal for Washington. So that's 20 points worth of swings right there. They also got a first and goal on the 1, and they ended up throwing an interception a couple plays later that ended the comeback bid. And then we mentioned it earlier, but O'Marion Hampton was injured in the game. It was a ankle injury. He's on IR now. Justin Herbert was sacked 4 times in this game and hit 9 times and pressured 12 times. Just to give a little context on what Herbert has dealt with throughout the course of his career, Andrew Luck was hit 580 times in his first 6 NFL seasons. Justin Herbert is on pace to be hit 625 times through his first 6 seasons. And a lot of it's injury related. I mean, they had Rashawn Slater. They spent a first round pick on him. They spent a first round pick on Joe Alt, and they've had injury things. But man, they've got to figure something out to keep him protected, because it's a brewing tragedy if they can't figure out how to protect Herbert. On the flip side, Jaden Daniels became the first player in NFL history with 4,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards in his first 20 games. So shout out Jaden Daniels, really fun player. Takeaways on that one, Mark?
Yeah, it feels like a lot of these games I just don't have a ton to say about. It was a bad Sunday in terms of just a lot of games that were not close, not one-score games. And then the games that were one-score games were insane, like the Cardinals, Titans, and stuff like that. But there's nothing to say about this game other than the O-line. The Chargers have no O-line whatsoever. Without their 2 tackles, it would have been really interesting to live in an alternate world where Slater never got hurt and all obviously stayed healthy. Like, I think they're probably among the best teams in football, no doubt about it. If they have both those teams, I still think they'd be the best team in football if they had both of those guys out there and everybody would have stayed healthy coming into the year. But putting that aside, am I supposed to? The Chargers defense. You have 27 in this game, 163 yards rushing. Jaden was pretty efficient passing the ball, only got sacked once. Am I supposed to downgrade the Chargers defense, or is it one of those things where the Chargers offense was so inept that how is the Chargers defense supposed to hold up throughout a whole game against a competent offense?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that. It's always tough when your offense is in such a big hole, as the Eagles fans have seen over the last few weeks as well. But hopefully they can at least get Alt back healthy, and they're able to make a strong push here. But feels like with so many of these teams we talk about, if they can just get and stay healthy, they could be really good. But that's the name of the game in the NFL, and we've seen it. It feels like especially heavy through the first 5 weeks of the season so far. But let's roll on to Sunday Night Football, where the New England Patriots traveled to Buffalo. Buffalo, the lone undefeated team after the Eagles fell to the Broncos, and then the Bills fell to the Patriots 23-20. So no undefeated teams remain in the NFL. This was the Drake May Stephon Diggs show. Stephon Diggs had 10 receptions for 146 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, but 10 for 146. Drake May was 22 of 30 for 273 yards, but both touchdowns belonged to Ramondre Stevenson, who had 14 total rushing yards, which is just hilarious. Buffalo is... We talked about the Lions, okay, and how they've beat up on a cupcake schedule, potentially. Buffalo has only faced one team this season with more than one victory, and they lost that game to the Patriots.
I will say they did beat the Lamar Ravens, so I do think it's like, I get it though.
Yeah, the Ravens had Lamar every game until this last one, and they still didn't manage to win, though. So
they lost to some good teams.
They did.
They scored a lot of points. That was still an impressive win, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it was. I'm not saying it's not, but it is just.
I do take your point though.
Yeah, in the context,
Jets, Dolphins, Saints is quite a murderer's row.
Yeah, in the context of what we're talking about with the Lions, you can only win the games put in front of you, and Uh, they got bit by turnovers. They only had one turnover in the first 4 weeks, and they had three against the Patriots. It was a Josh Allen interception, and then fumbles by Josh Allen and Keon Coleman. And this is a fun stat, Mark. Since taking over as the Bills head coach in 2017, Sean McDermott does not have a winning record against any Patriots coach. He was 6-8 versus Bill Belichick, 1-1 versus Gerard Mayo, and 0-1 now versus Mike Vrabel.
That's bizarre. I know he owns the other two teams in his division since he's been there. More Miami though. I know that they've had a couple struggles with the Jets, but he's owned the other two teams mostly. That's funny. I never realized that. It's. I mean, Drake May's here, right? Like that was the Drake May arrival to the main stage as like a true guy. I'd say
listeners of the show know, because I've been telling you guys how good Drake May was all of last season, and the stats didn't reflect it. But man, what he did last year was impressive, regardless. But yeah, this was it on Sunday Night Football. Everybody's watching. You knock off the last undefeated team. I'm telling you, Drake May looks like a special quarterback.
Yeah, he looks like he's going to be one of the top tier guys in the league for a long time. And I mean, I've said, I had Drake comfortably ahead of Jaden Daniels in his draft rankings. And as recently as week 2, week 3, people were laughing at me when I would say, I still don't think it's crazy to say Drake May could have a better long-term career than Jaden Daniels. And I still feel that way. I think, ultimately, I think both are really darn good and are going to be really darn good for a long time. Someone commented Drake May and Jaden Daniels are emerging like this. Definitely has to make Bears fans tweak out a little bit. I would argue we know less about the Bears than any team in the NFL right now. And I know that they just had a bye. So that's part of it. They've played 4 games where most of the league has played 5. But like, even if you go through their games, like, you have week 1 where they played amazing for a half and then terrible for a second half against Minnesota. You have week 2 where they got blown out by Detroit, where I don't even know what you want to take away from that game. You have week 3 where they played Dallas and they blew out Dallas. At the time, maybe that didn't seem as interesting. What Dallas has done since has been pretty impressive. And then they go out and they barely beat a Raiders team, which felt impressive at the time and maybe now isn't as impressive. So it's a really interesting kind of. College football is different than the NFL, where resumes matter. Resumes don't matter in the NFL. You just have to win a certain amount of games. A weird resume for the Bears. I was especially looking at this because Bears are 5-point underdogs on Monday Night Football next week at Washington, and I'm going to bet it. I'm going to bet Chicago +5 as a dog. I think they could win that game outright. But I don't know anything about the Bears, it feels like. It feels like more than any other team in the league, I don't know. Caleb's had some really nice moments over these last 2 weeks, and you look at the stats overall, pretty darn good to start the year. So I think it's pretty likely that all of Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels end up being top 12-ish quarterbacks for a long time.
All right. Yeah, I'm not like fully out on Caleb, but I would definitely at this point much rather have either of the other two guys.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I don't know about much, but I'd rather have them. I don't think he's that far behind them.
Yeah. The discussion between Jaden Daniels and Drake May for who you would want would be interesting, because the rushing ability of Daniels will fade over time, and Drake May doesn't rely on that as much. And you haven't seen him with quite the weapons that Jaden Daniels has. But I mean, I think you still have to go Daniels for what he did last year. But I think these two guys for sure will both be really good for a long time, which is great. I love seeing good quarterback play around the NFL. I would much rather be talking about that than Jake Browning. So
I'm sticking my flag. I still think Drake May is going to be the best quarterback from that class.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. I think I'm with you, but I think
it seems crazy. I know it seems crazy with how much Jaden's accomplished in the NFC Championship and the stats he put up last year, and even what he's done so far this year in the games he's played. It seems crazy. my eyes still tell me that Drake May has the upside to be the best player in the league, whereas Jaden Daniels, it feels like we are seeing what the upside is now, I guess.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to the Monday Night Football game, Mark. What a finish in Jacksonville. 28-31, the Jags win. You have a Chiefs touchdown to Travis Kelce where Mahomes talked the officials into picking up one of the most blatant offensive pass interference flags you'll ever see. So he talks the officials into picking that up. They ties the game. Then the Jags kick a field goal to take the lead. Then they lose the lead on a touchdown drive to the Chiefs. And then with under 2 minutes to go, down 4, Trevor Lawrence leads the Jags on a touchdown drive. Now, he did get intercepted in the end zone on a play that was negated by DPI, and then scored himself on the next play where he fell down twice. So he's under center. He gets stepped on as he's trying to get out from under center, falls down in the scramble to get up, falls again, and then he ends up rushing it for the touchdown himself. He said later that he was just trying to get out of the pocket and throw the ball away, and when he got out of the pocket, he realized nobody was there, and he dove in for the touchdown. So Mahomes did have 23 seconds left, and you had to wonder if the magic would come back, but it did not. He hit Hollywood Brown in the helmet with a pass that could have given them a chance to get into field goal range. I wonder if the Chiefs will check Hollywood Brown out for hamstring injuries associated with being hit in the helmet with a football. And it just didn't work out. So the Chiefs were up 14-0 and ultimately got outscored 31-14 after that. There was a Devin Lloyd 99-yard pick six in there as well. Devin Lloyd is on a heater right now. Guy that you and I, especially you, though, really loved in that draft, who looked awful as a rookie and has played really well this year. But, you know, we talk about your record in one-score games at times. And there is a clutch factor, I believe, associated with winning those close games. But it's not something that's sustainable, and it's not something you can rely on. And we frequently will talk about when we do our preview shows. If you flipped the result of every one-score game last year, this would be their record. The Chiefs were 11-0 in one-score games last year, and they're 0-3 in one-score games in 2025. And so this is why we do those exercises. Somebody will always inevitably get frustrated when I bring that up. And it's like, I'm not trying to negate what they're doing. There is a clutch factor, but it won't hold up over the long term. And so you might go on a heater for a year, but you're not going to continue at that pace. And the Chiefs are going through it right now. And yet, Rashee Rice looms on the horizon, and I do kind of feel like they're still just going to be fine down the stretch because they're the Chiefs and they never die.
Having said that, the Eagles are 4-1 in one-score games. Yeah. But anyway,
I've talked about that when people are like, "Why are you criticizing the offense? They're undefeated." It's like, yeah, because of blocked field goals and blocked punts and interceptions in the end zone. It's not sustainable, and of course, we saw that this weekend, but go ahead.
I do think some people are being a little too negative, but also I think that it's almost good that they lost so that people can't use their undefeated thing too. So it goes both ways. But Jacksonville, a lot of the times I feel like when Kansas City loses, or when the Eagles lose, or when a top team, Buffalo loses, and this goes for the Bills-Patriots game too, by the way. It feels like Kansas City lost it usually, or Buffalo lost it usually, or Philadelphia lost it usually. Whereas in this one and in the Patriots game, Jacksonville and New England won those games. Like, they went and won the game, as opposed to letting Kansas City blow it for them, and it just wasn't Kansas City's night. Pete Sweeney, a good Kansas City writer, went on Heed the Call this week, and he said he was at the game, and the way that Jacksonville fought, and you saw it with Trevor barreling to the end zone after he had his foot stepped on, and he's kept fighting to get to get a touchdown there. He quickly realized, like he said early in the game, you felt the vibe in the stadium that this was a big game for the Jaguars, and you're 3-1. It's a big kind of prove it to the fan base, prove it to everyone, national media, that you're a real game and you can go beat Kansas City, the big, bad, evil team that everybody in the league wants to beat, and people are going to start taking you seriously. And Pete Sweeney said, like, this just felt like this game meant more to Jacksonville than it meant to Kansas City, especially Kansas City's defense, which felt like it just didn't really show up for this one. I wouldn't be concerned about that long term. I think Spagnuolo generally gets things right. The defense generally gets better as the year goes on. So it's so fun. By the way, we made fun of me last week on this show because I announced that Kansas City was back and that they were going to go to the Super Bowl. And the run starts now. And then at the end of the show, you asked me for final thoughts, and I said, actually, Jags beat the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. I still think the same way about Kansas City. I still think they're going to the Super Bowl. How about that for a take? Even though they lost that game, I still think Kansas City's going to the Super Bowl. I still think they have a big run in them on this year. And I think, this is a little preview for final thoughts, I think they beat Detroit this week on Sunday Night Football. Everybody's off Kansas City now. Everybody's going to be betting on Detroit in that game. Kansas City bounces back after a loss and wins.
All right. Brett Eclipse is asking about what to make of Chris Jones on that final touchdown.
He's had a lot of questionable effort plays, and he had some, I think it was in the Eagles game where he was losing his mind on the sideline at his teammates, and obviously he had the rough look argument, I'd say, with Jalen at the end of the game. And yeah. I'd say Chris Jones has looked like a loser at multiple points this year so far.
Yeah, I guess I think I just saw it and kind of zoned out and was like, okay, it's bedtime.
Two more points, by the way, on the Jags. These jerseys, fantastic. I'd say the Fred Taylor era jerseys, maybe Byron Leftwich era Jags jerseys, fantastic with the sprawled out Jaguar on the sleeve. Great stuff. B, let's say you're Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen last offseason. You have the option of the Bears or the Jaguars job. Take out everything besides quarterback. If you were a head coach and you wanted to say, I have to pick one of these two guys to hitch my wagon to, let's say you even know what happens the first 5 weeks of this year. Going forward, would you rather hitch your wagon to Trevor Lawrence or Caleb Williams?
Ooh, if I'm Ben Johnson?
Either way, Liam Cohen or Ben Johnson.
I think Trevor Lawrence.
I go Caleb, but I think I think that the Jags are a lot better than Chicago. So and I think Liam Cohen might actually be a better coach than Ben Johnson. So that's another flip side thing. So I like Caleb more than Trevor, but I think Trevor's in a better spot. Someone said Mark predicts the team that's made the Super Bowl for the last 5 years will make it again. Isn't it the last 4 years? If they make it, I guess it would be the last 4 years if they make it this year. Never mind, it's the last three. Duh. But by the way, very poor prediction. They are 2-3. In fairness, a lot of people are not picking them at this point, I'd say, but I get it. I'm not trying to be bold. I'm trying to be right.
Yeah, the Chiefs have made
It's
five of the last 6.
Oh my god.
So yeah, Mark's out on a limb there.
Yeah.
The team that has made.
I'm looking up odds.
Mark's bold prediction is the team that has made 84% of the last 6 Super Bowls will make the Super Bowl.
What's the?
I'm just giving you a hard time.
They're fifth in Super Bowl odds. I guess this isn't great. They're second in AFC odds, but they're far behind Buffalo. Buffalo is like way ahead of them. Buffalo's plus 200, whereas the Chiefs are plus 425. So that is a pretty big difference. Who do you think's third, by the way, in odds in the AFC?
So it's Buffalo, Kansas City,
and then there's 4 teams that are very close, but one team has slightly better odds.
Buffalo, Kansas City. The Jags?
No, but we're going to talk about that in a second. This is my final thoughts, by the way. We can close down here with final thoughts on the AFC. The Jags, there's 4 teams that are between plus 750 and plus 950. The Jags are plus 15 to 1. Jags are 7th in the AFC in odds. I might put in a little future on the Jags plus 15 to 1 at 4-1 to win the AFC. But you can give me all the 4 teams if you want that are between 3rd and 6th in odds in the AFC.
Colts, Chargers, Broncos.
Those are 3 of them. Those are the first 3. Chargers or Colts plus 750. The Colts are 3rd. Chargers and Broncos tied at plus 850. Plus 950 will surprise you.
Are the Ravens?
That's the Ravens.
Okay, yeah. Still banking on Lamar coming back and making a run.
I get it. They don't want to leverage themselves too much. Yeah. Jags 15 to 1 is interesting to me. And I imagine that means their Super Bowl's 30 plus, 35 to 1. I wouldn't want to bet them to win the Super Bowl, but 15 to 1 to win the conference. That's interesting to me. They're 4-1, not in a great division. Colts are good, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, is that your final thoughts, Mark?
That's my final thought.
All right. Well, for my final thoughts, I'll give you a bold prediction as well, since Mark did. My bold prediction is that this coming week, on the short week, the Eagles go to the New York Giants and they get a win. So how's that for a bold prediction, Mark?
I like it.
Eagles.
I'm surprised the line is so definitive. On the road, you don't see a lot of road 7.5 point favorites.
I mean, they did just lose to the Saints.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. The Giants are bad. I was surprised that the line was that big. I certainly won't be laying the number.
We live in a world where I'm sitting here terrified that the Giants will just be like, you know what, the Eagles are so bad against zone, we're going to stop playing cover 1 man and play zone and then somehow beat us. But surely the Giants aren't that smart. So, all right, well, that's going to do it. Thank you guys for joining us for episode number 206 of Chalk Talk. If you enjoy what you heard on the show, and we know that you do, be sure you smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. Drop us a 5-star rating wherever you stream your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Shane Half NFL. He is at Mark Henry Jr. And we